From WHQR Public Media, this is the Newsroom. I'm Ben Schachman. Thanks for listening to this special edition for the 2025 Wilmington City Council election. This year, there are 3 open seats on council, and we have 8 candidates, including 6 challengers and 2 incumbents. We also have 3 candidates for mayor, including our incumbent mayor. While the city council race is technically nonpartisan, the local Democratic and Republican parties do play a role in supporting candidates. For city council, we have 3 Republican candidates, 1 unaffiliated candidate, and 4 Democratic candidates. Although the County Democratic Party implemented a straw poll to narrow its support to 3 of those candidates, and 1 of the 2 Democrats running for mayor. And we'll have more information about all of that on the show page. On today's show, we're interviewing Democratic incumbent Clifford Barnett Sr., who is running for re-election to a 3rd term. We'll ask him a host of questions drawn from listeners and readers and our community agenda program. All right, Clifford Barnett, candidate for re-election to Wilmington's City Council. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for the offer.
So before we get started, I think a lot of people in the city know you, but just in case, we will always have some newcomers. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I'm Clifford Barnett. I've been here now going on 16 years. I came to pastor a church called Water Temple. It's a Methodist church. And I've had the privilege of serving as a member of the Wilmington City Council for the last 8 years. I am married, been married for 36 years. We have 3 great kids, and I'm enjoying being in Wilmington.
So we're also asking all the candidates if they're affiliated with a party, and if so, which party and why.
Okay, well, I'm a Democrat. I was born a Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life, and so that's the party that I'm affiliated with.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
First issue, this probably won't surprise you, that we hear a lot of the times when we're out in the community talking to people, asking them what's on their mind, is affordable housing.
Yes.
So, and this covers a lot of things. You know,
Sure.
There's some people have different definitions of it. Mm-hmm. So feel free to take whatever part of that interests you. But how do you think about the issue of affordable housing?
Well, I think about the issue of affordable housing is, first of all, I think everybody deserves a safe, decent place to live. And the term affordable housing basically really means that you're not spending more than 30% of your annual income on housing. However, what we find here in Wilmington, because it's such a great place to live, we are really running out of space. You know, it's a great place to live, and people want to live here. And for those who are building homes, they want to make as much as they can as well. So I think that our job is, as members of the City Council, is to find strategic places where we could build, as well as finding ways that we could perhaps help with these houses that people have dilapidated. Like, one of the things that I'm really interested in is making sure that we do air property. You know, I've done workshops at my church where we've taught to people about, hey, don't lose mom's property. You know, work together as a family and build it. But of course,
I just want to say, for people who don't know what an air property is.
Okay. Air property is, for example, if your grandmama dies and she leaves the house to the family, and the family may have 5 kids or whatever, and it becomes what's called air property. And one of the challenges that we have is that a lot of times people move out of the city, and then they don't want to keep the property, and then that's when they have issues with it. Okay. But also, you know, note that we as members of the council, we've worked really hard to provide affordable housing. We've done, $43 million worth of houses, and we've built at least 2,282 units, with having 882 of those workforce houses. So we do try real hard to make sure that everybody gets a place to live.
One of the issues we talk about with housing for us from the Newsroom is homelessness. We kind of see this as part of the housing problem. Obviously, substance abuse, mental health also involved. But how do you look at the homelessness issue right now from the city of Wilmington's point of view?
Well, the way I look at the homeless issue is similar to the way the whole country is looking at the homeless issue. As you mentioned, there's a lot of mental illness, and I'd love to see people that are homeless. We love to provide resources for them, places where they can go. And the goal is, as my philosophy is always, is to get them back to their families. Okay? And so one of the things that we're challenging now with the homeless issue here in Wilmington is that we're understanding that many people are coming from outside of Wilmington because we have some resources. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing is we'll be meeting with all of those coalitions, all those people that are working with the homeless, and saying what's working, what's not working. I actually had the opportunity just yesterday to ride with a police officer to see some of the unhoused camps, to see places where people are living and how they work with that. I've also had an opportunity to ride with a businessman who showed me some of the situations that are happening downtown. So we're very interested in making sure that all of our city is clean and all of our city is a place where we can provide services for those who are less fortunate.
How do you feel about where the city's role should be? Because you've got the county, you've got the city, you've got the state, you've got nonprofits, you've got churches, and you've got the endowment. So I hear some people say it shouldn't all be on the city, but obviously you guys are, down the block, so to speak, from downtown, and so you're going to hear a lot of it. How do you feel about how that balance of responsibility should be?
I would love to see a stronger partnership with all of those entities. Okay, I agree that it shouldn't be all on us, but however, right now that's where it appears, and we are going to make sure that the residents of Wilmington have places to live. And so that's our responsibility, I think, as well.
The flip side of this is, and you alluded to this, there are people who want to build, and they want to. It's a business, and they want to make money, be successful.
Absolutely.
There are places where they can build by right, places where they're going to come to you and ask for increased density, although fewer and fewer of those. There's not that much buildable space left in the city. And we certainly hear from housing advocates that relieving the demand is going to help with the cost of units, it's supply and demand,
Sure.
But I have to say, and you've seen this over the last, terms, every time a major multifamily apartment complex comes up, whether it's affordable or market rate or luxury, you're going to feel that pushback from people. So as people try to fit more density into where they can in the city of Wilmington, how do you negotiate that balance?
Well, I think one way to negotiate that balance is, of course, to make sure that where we're putting those houses is a good fit. The other thing I think a way to negotiate that balance is that we have to understand that I'm a neighbor's keeper, and you want to be a good neighbor. And I think it's so unfair for me to be a builder and not be able to get what I can get from the land. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to do some incentives. We also try, everyone that comes before us, I had the privilege of saying, hey, how can you make it affordable? How can you make it so that others can share in getting getting to the ground? So it's a very complex issue, but we try to do it every section we get, every space we get an opportunity to talk about it. Now, of course, you always hear people say, not in my neighborhood. And to me, really, Ben, oftentimes there's a perception, because when we talk about, for example, affordable housing, many people think it's low income housing, or we think that, now my neighborhood's going to change. It doesn't have to change.
I've seen those comments where people, and I think there's two things you got to say. One is that many of the people living in publicly subsidized housing projects, most of the people I know there are great human beings who are just doing their damnedest, doing their best, right?
Sure.
But when you concentrate poverty, you do sometimes have higher levels of crime, and I think that's what people think about. But then when we talk about affordable housing, often we're talking about cops and teachers and nurses and me.
Educators, you. Yeah. Sure. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Workforce housing.
So last question about building and development is that there have been some debates and some good conversations about where we could put density. If we wanted more apartment units, more housing units, where in the city would that go, where it would work? And some people suggested, the downtown, central business district could expand up. And I think some people are nervous about that because they feel a certain kind of way about how Wilmington is and what the feel of downtown is. And other people are like, it's the perfect place. You got public transit, you've got services. So, not that we're ever going to have 80-story skyscrapers, but how do you feel about, building up in downtown Wilmington?
Well, of course, the challenge we have building up is we're on the coast, so those things called hurricanes that come through. So you've got to, if you build up, you've got to build up strategically. I'm in favor of building where we can. It has to be an individual case. I can't just say we're going to put 8-story buildings. We're not going to put 8-story buildings downtown. We wouldn't dare do that.
No. Okay. Another issue we hear about, and this is related to development, and this has to do with green space. And so for some people that means, when they see trees getting cut down for a new project, for some people it means having access to parks. For some people it means, walking trails and stuff like that. How do you feel like the city is doing on that front?
We're improving. We have built more green space. We're going to be finishing the Green Loop Trail. I have actually personally planted trees over on the north side, right there by D.C. Burgo. So we're looking at supporting tree canopy. And we actually have find individuals who have cut down trees and said, if you cut them down, you're going to have to replace them. So we're very interested in that. People move to cities that have that luxury, that have a place where I can ride my bike, where I can go outside and play under the trees. So we're still looking for that.
I want to ask about a different topic, and that's economic development. So over the last 10, 12 years, that has meant things like direct incentive programs, like a PBD or Live Oak or National Gypsum. It's also meant things like the Wells Fargo golf tournament, where one of the ideas was hopefully bringing people here and having them fall in love with the region.
Yes, right.
And sometimes that means, maybe taking someone to a show at the Wilson Center or the Live Oak Pavilion. So it's a big category, lots of different ways you can do economic development. But how do you think about that issue? What do you think the city's role should be?
I think the city's role is to be very partnering with, for example, the chamber. Sure, not only do we want to bring in the big businesses, but we also want to strengthen the small businesses. 75% of our businesses are small businesses, and we want to strengthen those, because when you strengthen small businesses, that way you also strengthen the economy, as well as you provide people with housing. So I'm very interested in working with small business as well, entrepreneurs. I think that's exciting. That's where we are here in Wilmington. We get the opportunity. Well, it's a big business, but yesterday we had the privilege of doing the groundbreaking for a Wawa. And you were in Philadelphia, so you know.
Oh, yeah, I know Wawa.
Yeah, and they're going to bring about 4 stores in this area, but they're also going to employ about 400 people, right? But we also look at the businesses that may be connected with them that will benefit because they came here. Okay, so the more businesses you have, the more opportunities people get a chance to look at them. Now, I love people coming to our city because it's a modeled city, and we want people to come and fall in love with it.
I do hear this a lot where, and this is not specific to Wilmington, this is, once a city gets to a certain size and it gets the ability to recruit businesses, a lot of times there's the big game hunter, the whale hunter theory, right? Where we're going to go out and we're going to get Apple, we're going to get Google. And I sometimes do hear frustrations from those small businesses that you're talking about, the mom and pops. And I worked for about a dozen small businesses in my life, and I think a lot of people I know have always worked for small businesses. What do you think the city can do to help people, like you said, an entrepreneur who's starting a new business, or maybe someone who runs a couple of restaurants?
Sure. Number one is exposure. I think the city can use those small businesses when they're demonstrating projects and things like that. Working with CIE, which is over with UNCW, and working with Genesis Block, working with Channel. All of those things are things that we can connect with. One of the things that I've been proud of as a member of the city council is that I like to collaborate. I like to work with everybody, and I like to put everybody at the table. And so I think that's one of the things we can do for the small businesses as well.
Another aspect of economic development, you've been here for 16 years. I've been here on and off for 22 years. And I've seen tremendous economic growth and success and affluence, but not equally. Right?
Sure.
And there are certain parts of the city that have not felt the benefits of that growth and success. And there is pretty obvious economic disparity. And sometimes that looks a lot like racial disparity, where you've got low-income Hispanic and Black neighborhoods that have just not prospered the way the rest of Wilmington has. And so we're asking all the candidates, what do you think, if anything, Wilmington, the city's role is in addressing that issue?
I think that we need to, as a city, recognize it. Number one, recognize gentrification. And we as a city perhaps need to do more to, again, help those families hold on to their property, hold on to their land, So doing air property workshops, we've done them where we actually had lawyers come in and help families complete their will, things like that. One of the things that we try to do is whenever we get a house that has been dilapidated and they're saying we get ready to tear it down, if we can find the relatives who are saying, no, we'll fix it up. We'll extend some time. We'll give them some grace so that they can in turn get it back on their feet. We're not into getting them to lose their property. We want them to stay where they are. Yeah.
So next question for you is about public safety.
Okay.
Y'all are preparing to announce a new police chief.
Yes.
Soon, I hear.
Very excited. Very excited. Soon.
That's what I hear. I hear good
soon
things.
Soon come.
I hear very good things. But as with any institution, when you've got a new head administrator, new person in charge, it's a chance to reinvest in what you've been doing or pivot and try new things. And understanding that city council doesn't have a direct hand on how the PD does. But
sure.
You have preferences. What would you like to see in this new administration for the police department?
I think two things that you said. Reinvest in what has been working and some new stuff. What has been working is community policing. We want to continue with community policing. Maybe reinvent some things. How can we best support our police? Now, we have always been strong advocates for public safety and strong advocates for providing police with what they need, the resources that they need. I'm excited about this new police chief coming in because he interviewed very well. He really did. He made a statement, in essence, that said that he had a guy who was working for him, and the guy came to him and said, "Hey, can I be off?" And he says, "Well, no, because we got all this da-da-da-da." And then he goes to another guy, and the same guy says, "Hey, can I be off?" And then the guy said, "What did the chief say?" And the guy says, "Oh, whatever you said." And so then the chief said, okay. He let him go. He fired him. Because he made this dumb claim. He said, if you lie to me about that, how can I trust you to go to court and tell the truth?
Yeah.
So person of integrity. The other thing, though, I think, is that we got to recognize is that we are hard at trying to pay our police officers what is the average. We work with salary increases. We work with retirement. And as it relates to public safety, I am adamant about partnerships. How can we as all, you mentioned growing up in the projects, I did. And one of the things that happened with us was that Mr. Johnson would say, "Hey, Barnett boy, make sure you're doing the right thing." And neighbors looked after neighbors. I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah, I think one issue, and I don't think this is, you can lay it at the foot of any one person, but
Sure.
over years has been a deterioration of the relationship between some communities and the police department, and that makes it hard for the police to do their job. I mean,
Yes.
You look at the Kidder Street shooting, where law enforcement knows somebody knows something, and on the other hand, there are people in the community who just don't feel safe or don't feel good about going to the police. So that relationship, I think, is something I hear people saying they hope they see that will get improved.
I do too. And it happens through relationships, and you can't just see the police coming as the bad guy, And now you got to be honest too. There are some police officers that don't represent their badge.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's how do you keep that from destroying the
Absolutely.
whole institution and all those relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of recruiting and retaining, and I should say this goes for the Wilmington Fire Department too.
Sure.
Excellent group of men and women as well.
Absolutely.
It feels like sometimes the city of Wilmington, although you guys have made strides to increase compensation, it feels like you're in a bidding war with
We are.
with
other agencies, with other regions and other
Yeah.
municipalities. Because what happens is, and it's unfortunate, when we increase our raise, then Mr. Selms says, "Okay, I saw what you did, and I'm gonna trump you." So that's what's basically is happening. And unfortunately, if people can't afford housing, if a police officer can't afford to live here, that's why we're working with affordable housing, because we really want to provide a place where you can work and live. And so we're learning that people have been leaving because of salaries and maybe because of some internal strife. But one of the things that I've said in an interview is that I would like to see us work on both ends, because I think that people move and stay to jobs. It's not always the salary that keeps you. It's like you mentioned, you came from Boston because you said, I got to go back to Wilmington. And it's not always, because you make big bucks here, but it's not the big bucks that keeps you.
Right. No, I know people who have taken or stayed at jobs. I've turned down opportunities where I could have made more money.
Sure.
You got to love what you do.
Absolutely.
Or that money is just,
yeah,
that's an albatross, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our last policy question is we want to ask about public transportation.
Okay.
Over the last 10 years, it's been ups and downs for WAVE, and the city has been the largest local funder, most consistent funder.
Right.
Federal government obviously puts in a lot of money, but the county has been in, the county's been out, and that has to some extent impacted how much WAVE can do. So I'm curious, how do you see where WAVE is right now, and where would you like to see things go with WAVE?
I see it, like you said, up and down. And what I'd like to see, I'd really love to see us with more routes and encouraging more riders, consistency. But I'd also like to see a stronger partnership, okay? That those who are getting resources to do WAVE would really step up and give it the resources that they need.
So right now, I guess the city has some partnership with the county, some partnership with UNCW. One thing I've heard people ask too, and I'm curious if you've thought about this, is there used to be a spur route out to Leland.
Right.
And I've heard people talk about the bedroom communities in northern Brunswick County and Hampstead. Is that something WAVE could ever crack the nut on?
We would hope they do. As a matter of fact, we had a coalition that kind of thought about that. As a matter of fact, I talked with a little girl from UNCW this morning, and she said she's been looking for a bus that takes her to the beach. And she said, did I miss it? Did I miss it? And I said, no, we don't have one. But yeah, I think that's a great opportunity. I think also I've thought about that perhaps if we could get to some of these businesses where perhaps the bus could pick up their employees at their business and take them maybe to a parking space. I think that would work as well.
Yeah, a park and ride. I think
Yes,
a lot of people.
like they do in D.C.
Yeah, I mean, I used to ride the bus to work here in Wilmington. It took all day, but I did.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. More rides. More frequent rides.
Well, those are our policy questions. I'm curious if there's anything we didn't get to that you would like to talk about.
Well, I'd like to just tell our listeners that I enjoy being here in Wilmington. I've pastored for 46 years. I said when I first became on the city council that I'd be a man of integrity, a man of conviction, and I've continued to do that. I'm very serious about making Wilmington a better place for all of us, not just a certain group of people, but for every resident that comes to Wilmington, even their guests. I want them to find this a nice place to live.
Well, I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Clifford Barnett, running for re-election to Wilmington City Council. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good deal.
That was our interview with Democratic incumbent Clifford Barnett Sr., who is running for re-election to Wilmington City Council. I'm Ben Schockman. Thanks for listening to this special edition of the Newsroom, and check out our other candidate interviews at WHQR.org or wherever you get the Newsroom as a podcast.